Okay, everybody, we got the moment you've all been waiting for. The main event.
Yes, we went from LFG to WFG. Let's fucking go, which has been our mantra all year.
LFG is let's fucking go.
Yeah, that's LFG.
WFD.
FD. We fucking did.
it. Here you go.
Cue the rock flute.
Welcome to the Löw Tide Böyz, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 140 of the show. In this episode, we will be sharing our race report for ÖTILLÖ, the Swimrun World Championship. This race just happened. We're recording this in a hotel room
on Tuesday.
This race happened yesterday. And yeah.
We're going to give it to y'all. This might be a long, I have a feeling this could be
if this is your first time listening, so these race reports are a tradition from within our training group where whenever any one of us engaged in some sort of feat of endurance or some crazy endurance event, we'd meet up for either dinner or go for like a run, a race, like a race report run or something like that. To just kind of share on what happened and sort of in that rich tradition of celebrating like questionable sort of endurance race choices. We thought we would just give race reports as part of the show as we're chronicling our journey. So this one is definitely sort of in that tradition.
Yeah, and if this is your first exposure to the Löw Tide Böyz, Chris and I are a couple of dads, and we do some endurance events. And several years ago, we did ÖTILLÖ Catalina, and we started the Löw Tide Böyz, this podcast, to basically help our friends out on some beginner swimmer information because we were the only people that we knew that had really done one. And then here we are 140 episodes later.
Yep.
We did ÖTILLÖ, which we have been talking about and thinking about for the better part of this year. We have our countdown to ÖTILLÖ shows, so if you want to sort of hear our journey, you could check those out. We did 6 of those. Month 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Yeah, and 0 is a little bonus there at the end.
Zero's an extra one there. But we're literally in the Stockholm airport
having fika.
Hotel, having a fika, which we had many a fika.
Lots of fikas.
In Stockholm.
Lots of fikas. So before we get into sort of going down memory lane on this, a word of caution. So we're still processing everything that took place. I think this race for us was really sort of almost like a mythological quest or something. And this episode might be a little stream of consciousness-y. So we may have to do a follow-up episode that goes into more sort of nitty-gritty. We'll see how it goes, but just bear with us because we're still processing what was a really incredible experience. And in many ways, it felt like we went to some sort of summer camp. And
I never got to go to summer camp.
Just made the greatest memories. Memories to last a lifetime.
Yeah. And at least we have cameras to take pictures of them.
That's true.
Stuff that we did. So
you want to talk about initial thoughts on let's talk about initial thoughts like on the trip.
About what? On the trip?
And then we'll get into the race itself.
So we live in California on the west coast of the United States. I personally have never been to Europe before. So I was really looking forward to that, experiencing a different country. And I mean, I guess we try to say this a lot, but we talk about swimrun hours a day, Chris and I, for 7 days a week.
Usually to each other.
2 or 3 years. Yeah. Mostly to each other. Sometimes begrudgingly our wives will put up with it, which we appreciate them, obviously. So this is a huge deal, obviously. And, I mean, just the support and everything that we got, I mean, it was hard not to have it become this massive spectacle, if you will, or just thing on the top of our heads for
just
9 months.
Totally. It was on a pedestal. This is the original swim run. This is the World Championship.
This is the Kona of the sport that we are so into.
And it really put an interesting sort of patina on all. So there's all these stories we've shared on the show, right? You've heard a whole bunch of them, crazy stuff that happens at ÖTILLÖ. Matthew last year breaking his foot at the end of the pig swim and still making it to the finish and ending up in 3rd place. Like all these stories, which just sound crazy, just outright, have this different context now because now we're like, oh my God, like that is just unbelievable what people can accomplish on this thing. And this course mean, I've been mentioning it all weekend. I mean, it's really a quest, and you have to go through these tests, and it tests you in different ways as you go through it. And it was just a really amazing experience. And like you, I've never been to Sweden, and really, I've only really been paying attention to Sweden outside of World Cup years when we really started getting into swimrun, because this is where the sport was born. We started sort of studying it and learning the history. Got people here. So coming here was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the city was great. Like we had been saying before this, we're going to train like we're going to war. And that's what we did for, the better part of 9 months, starting in February, basically.
Yeah.
And then, shit really got serious there in July, August for a bit. But then it's Disneyland when we get here. And that's sort of the mindset that we tried to have. I personally was like a massive anxiety, nerves.
Yeah, it was fine
time.
until sort of the night before the race. It got pretty bad.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I was definitely stressed, and there was a lot of stuff that we felt like we had to do, I guess.
Yeah,
and wanted to do too.
For sure. And it was really great. The second we show up, everyone's welcoming us, asking us letting us know if we need anything. People making Dennis, who you are, making fun of us, telling us to stop having fikas. Stop a fika.
Yeah.
And after the race, start fika. But yeah, I think initial impressions, like for me, it's when we talk about the vibe of swimrun, it being welcoming, being supportive, everyone out, as one, taking care of nature. I was almost like an epiphany coming here, because it just became kind of obvious. It's like, of course, if the sport was born here, it was going to have this sort of ethos of helping each other, being friendly, being welcoming, and that just blossomed over the years to the point where that's the same vibe that you have at events in the U.S.
Yeah.
But coming here to the source of it was pretty cool.
And you could really see the terrain is just so suited for it out here. I mean, we're running around areas that, like if you weren't super worried about getting hit by a boat or something, you could just totally zig and zag all over Stockholm city and have yourself, you could be swim running for hours just around in the areas that we just did a little 5-mile run. It was like we were in swim run heaven, basically. Which, we were.
And just everywhere, everyone was super welcoming and stuff. And it was great. We had anyway, we'll get into more details on all this stuff, but I think for what I was hoping to get out of this experience of coming to Sweden and doing the World Championship, it exceeded pretty much all my expectation.
I think that's a lot. Probably the most common question that we got from people were like, was it what you expected?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I mean, it didn't disappoint us. That's
that's for damn sure.
We got our money's worth. However many, whatever we paid, we got our money's worth out there. For sure. I mean, the race is a beast, and we'll probably say this multiple times in the show, but just, anybody who's lined up to do that thing, mad respect. This thing is something else. But before we get to the race itself, I mean, it's really a race weekend. It is. It's not a one-day thing. It's a whole multi-day event to just hang out with swim runners.
It's like a camp, I'm telling you. You take a bus or an Uber, you go to this hotel, conference center, everyone's there, you're sharing meals, you're going to the race briefing, you're chatting people up. The next morning, you get up super friggin' early.
Yeah.
Get on a boat that takes you to Stanhamn, which is the first island. You do the race. After the race, you make it to Uta. You stay there at the hotel that's owned by one of the founders. Yeah. Awesome food, breaking bread, drinking, having a good time. Everyone's there for the award ceremony. Then the next day, you get on a ferry.
This morning.
This morning. Awesome breakfast.
People, it was great. It's so funny. Everyone we were hanging out with there, multiple trips back for seconds and third. I mean, everybody was ravenous.
Everyone was eating.
Ravenous there.
And then everyone gets on the ferry, and there's this moment where boats are taking off, and all the ÖTILLÖ staff is just there, just waving everyone goodbye.
Yeah, thank you. And
that was just like, we were sitting with Phil from the Monks, and he was saying, it's like, oh yeah, that's part of the tradition is waving the goodbye to Michael and Matson and all the crew. So this like whole package was something.
Yeah. Do we want to? So when we on Saturday night, we had our meetup.
Yep.
So we had a couple meetups planned with a few people, and then we had our big event meetup, and we at Talk Bar restaurant, and so we were really excited to meet. Again, when we do these things, we say we never know, but every single time it exceeds our expectations. It's like there could be 4 people here, and then there could be 40 people here.
It was
so awesome. But let's just kind of make it down that list. For the Löw Tide Böyz meetup.
And caveat, like we, as usual, we try super hard to remember everyone's name and try to remember every interaction. If we missed you, we're super sorry. It was a lot. That's all. That's my excuse.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. So I'll kick it off here. So Chet and Anna. Chet was actually one who suggested the Talk Bar for us, which was great.
Yep, Tobias Alversson, and he told me such a good story that I just want to share with everyone here because I think it was just an amazing story of just, I mean, as soon as you told me the story, I think I told you the story, Chipper, and I told it a couple times.
It's just everything that we get these stories, and it's like literally this is what we're trying to do, and this is a +1 in that column. Like we mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Yeah, totally. So Tobias told me that he lives in Stockholm, doing swimming and running, and then
he's an active guy. He likes being active.
Swimmer and a runner. He's got a family, young kids. And someone told him, was like, oh, you should check out Swimrun. And he lives in Sweden. He hadn't heard of it. I think he probably saw some people doing it, but didn't really know what it was. So he's a big podcast guy. So he goes on the internet and is searching Swimrun podcast. Guess what? There is only one.
The top Swimrun podcast that we've been saying.
So he listens to the show, gets super stoked on Swimrun, now considers himself a swimrunner, has a new friend group, like all these people he trains with. And, and it was a cool story because we love how people find the show. But it was also interesting. It's like, hey, this guy's in the source, the motherland of Swimrun, and he didn't know about it. It just shows how niche the sport is and how much opportunity is there to sort of introduce people. But I thought that was a super cool story.
Totally. So awesome to meet, as we said, sometime during our 10-hour, 20-minute adventure on Monday, gems of humans.
Gems.
Team Mr. and Mrs. B, Bill and Chrissy.
Yeah.
Langford.
Yeah, they did Final 15 and then volunteered, so we got to hang out with them.
So they came here for the whole weekend, did the Final 15 race, which seemed awesome. We were wanting to check it out, like, oh man, that'd be so cool. But the logistics was just not going to work out for us. But it was so great to meet them in person.
Yeah, friggin' Jonas Colting showed up.
Yeah.
Gotta love him, dude.
He's
so
awesome.
Great. He came with his new partner whose name I'm blanking on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Met in the flesh, Max Mockerman,
finally,
G-Flow, and Toby. So awesome to see them. They were having a hell of a time around Stockholm, swim running in and out, and they had a great day out there.
For sure. Then the U.S. crew showed up because they're just supportive
Legends.
to a fault. Tristan, Amy, Marcus, and race Sherpa extraordinaire, Matt.
I know. We need to see what his rate is for race Sherpa because we might need to retain his services.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll sign him to a contract for that.
Yeah. Oh, and Liz and Jacob, they came without Batman though, but Team Batman's parents.
Without Batman. Hendrik. So awesome to meet him. We've been interacting many a time on Instagram. So cool to see him in person.
Papa. Astrid and Jean from France, they showed up, and they actually gave us some cool swim caps from their swim club, which we'll be rocking, and we'll put some Instagram posts next time we're at the pool wearing these things. They were dope.
Yeah, Martina and Christian also showed up. We didn't get a chance to chat with them as much as we wanted, but really appreciate you guys coming through.
Definitely. Katie from Finland, she was there in spirit, but we still managed to hook her up with some free hats that we were giving out to everyone, and she seemed pretty stoked about that.
Nice. And then always great to hang out with the Boston Red Sox, Bronwyn and Greg, who had a great day, shaved 45 minutes off their PR.
Amazing.
No big deal on Monday. So they had a spectacular race.
Yeah, and finally, Helene Ostet, who, I mean, she was basically like the welcome committee for us. I mean, she showed up, brought us fika, checking in on us, making sure we were cool. It was great to see her multiple points over the weekend, and she's awesome. And another gem.
I found out someone came to the meetup. We were gone because as they say in the States, we were tuckered out. I was literally standing around yawning because I was so exhausted. But Heather fell from the Global Triathlon Network and former Olympic medalist in the modern pentathlon. They showed up, but we had already left. So sorry we didn't get to meet you then, but we definitely
chatted up with them.
So she works for Global Triathlon Network, a YouTube show, and she paired up with Jenny Ramsett, who you might know from the Kraken Swimrun
Team
group,
Kraken Swimrun.
and they did. They left us in the dust, no problem.
Yeah, we hung out with them for a couple
like
islands,
one or two islands, and then I was like, see you later.
Then there was a decent swim. It's like, all right, see you guys later. Yeah, but that was super fun, and it was great for people to show up. So like we said, sort of pre-race day, everyone takes a bus or an Uber to this resort or this sort of conference center that's essentially all rented out for ÖTILLÖ.
They booked the whole thing.
There's, a fika welcome, there's dinner, there's breakfast the next morning, the whole thing. And that was, that's basically, you're there with every swim runner and a lot of spectators that are...
And all the staff.
And all the staff. Everyone that's participating in this thing. So you're literally all in this together in this conference room. And we met a bunch of people there. It's almost too many to list.
It is, honest. But we, our buddy Ville, from who we had some episodes back, he was again hosting. Him and his partner Joaquin were hosting the ÖTILLÖ pre-race live show on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So he had reached out, and he's like, "We need to get you boys on the live show." Okay,
they're like, "Oh, free publicity. Yeah, we're there.
We're there." So we had that book, which actually worked out kind of well because the buses ended up being delayed. So if you want to hear the Löw Tide Böyz official ÖTILLÖ pre-race interview, that's on their YouTube channel. But big
in HD.
It was looking. Their setup. They definitely upgraded that thing. It's looking sharp. So
for sure. Yeah. So the pre-race was interesting because I don't think I've been as nervous for a race ever.
I mean, I actually will say, once we got there, I started feeling a little better.
Once you got to the conference center?
Yeah, but before, I assume I was trying to do my best to be Mr. Normal Guy. Mm-hmm. I'm sure people saw right through it, but
I could tell that. I think it was the same for you. Like it came in waves where it was just like, oh my god, this is a big day. And it doesn't matter how prepared you are, it's still like an unknown, and it's a difficult thing. And yeah, it was funny because this is a little foreshadowing, but during the race, I remember telling Chippers, like, I'm usually fine after the first transition. Like, let's get in the water and out, and then it's like, yes, we're swim running, we know how to do this. And sort of the first start of the race, you're like, oh yeah, there was nothing, probably didn't need to be, scared or have any sort of trepidation or anxiety about the race. Towards the end, it was like, no, actually, that was all well justified. Yeah. Once you got to the end of Orna, you're like, yeah, that was appropriate.
But there was a time during the race that you were like, I'm not nervous. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, I think that first swim getting in there, and that's what I kept, I guess, kind of mantras I had that I was trying, that I probably told you like a million times, just mostly for my own entertainment. But like, hey, we know how to swim run, and that's, when you boil it all down, that's what we're doing just for a really long time.
Yep.
And that's about as simple as I could kind of make it. And that, I guess that kind of helped me, or it felt like it helped me. But
yeah. So that night, sitting in the conference room, which we've seen, or in the auditorium, listening to the pre-race briefing. We've seen these things on YouTube. It was just really interesting. We saw so many people that we've connected with before. Got to really hang out with Rasmus for a while, who we love.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Bilo, as we mentioned before, chat with Michael and Mats.
Anyone we could talk to or that would come up to us, it was just cool to have the opportunity to see them multiple times. And it's like, and then it definitely sort of deepened the connect. Instead of hey, here's 5 minutes, high five photo. It's like, we saw you here, and then we saw you during the race, and then we saw you at the breakfast, and it's like multiple touch points with everyone.
For sure. And I think sort of overall from like the show perspective, it was like, I think people really appreciated that we showed up. We qualified like everyone else. We respected it, took it seriously, came prepared. I think people just appreciated that we came with it without just, any delusions. It was really helpful to have sort of Andy Hewitt, the Godfather, and Phil from the Monks there as well. So we got to chat with them, and that was really cool hanging out with them because, Andy this was the 7th time he was doing the race. It was Phil's third.
So
there was a lot of experience there. And when the Godfather
everyone we talked to was just more than happy to pass along their tips or feedback or whatever. And, that was just keep packing it away there. So what are we transitioning to? Race morning?
We talk about race morning?
Well, we had a great dinner, the pre-race little speech that Michael and Mats did, and the new hype video that Rasmus did was like, I was literally shaking. I was like, oh, fuck. This shit's about to get fucking real in like 8 hours here, right? It was awesome. So cool. And, they're just being how you would expect. Like, Michael opened, he's like, tomorrow, we'll break you. It's like,
but you will live.
But you will, it's all like, okay, cool. So then we tried to go to sleep. I was tired.
You made him sound like Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV.
Sorry.
I would break you.
Sorry, Michael. We tried to go to sleep.
With mixed results?
Mixed results. I think the way it seemed like from Chris's point of view, it was like I was wrestling. There was like a raccoon in my sheets or something. I was
just a lot of tossing and
turning.
At one point, you started snoring, so I was happy for you.
Oh, but then you also want to stifle me out. So
a super early wake up. So
3 o'clock.
We woke up at like 3:03 or something, and then started our routine, mostly just like sitting around for a while. But the way I was feeling, I was pretty nervous in the morning. But I was like, hey, as soon as we get there and get this started, the sooner that's going to go away.
The start of it at least seemed like, okay, this is going to happen in a little bit, and it'll be here soon.
And I will say, so we got up pretty early, and we got on the ferry early, got some seats, and honestly, like, the process of getting on the ferry, and felt the same way at Catalina back in the day. It's like everyone gets in this thing. Yeah. We're kind of all in this together.
You're all in it together.
We're all going to this
and that's the whole ethos of it.
Totally.
Like the whole thing.
Totally, yeah. So we get to Sandhamn, and it's pretty chilly.
It's chilly. I would say it was probably in the mid to low 40s. So we had arm warmers on, and we are. We'll probably go into it like a gear idea, but we basically wanted the cold to be a non-issue the whole day. But the weather was amazing. Yeah, everyone we talked to was like, "Oh my god, this is going to be a bad year."
Yeah, it's basically hadn't been as good since last year was this good was 2018, which was a little bit warmer air temp, but this year the water temp was pretty warm, and, and the air temp was a little bit cooler. So and it was sunny for most of the day.
Yeah,
so it was pretty. If you consider good conditions a lucky thing, then we lucked out. If you were part of me wanted sort of like the OG, whatever, tough World Championship experience, then we didn't. All times tough were enough. Fast, but it was tough enough.
It was tough enough with the best weather they've ever had. That we'll probably be back at some point. I think it's safe to say, but it's tough enough as is. Yeah. But yeah, race morning, I think we kind of tried to get our last tinkles out, try to get the nerves out, chatting up a couple more people. We have a great picture with most of the American teams that we were able to get, which was great. And just seeing so many people, and then it was kind of like focus mode. So our race goals and plan were as follows.
Yeah.
So the number one thing was obviously finish this thing.
Yeah.
2, stay upright and don't get hurt, because that just would have been devastating.
And we crushed that goal. Mission
accomplished. We did good on that. Number 3 or 4 was like, make sure we're refueling, because if we don't get enough in the engine, we're not going to be able to power through how we want.
Yeah.
And then have fun, obviously.
Yeah, you're switching that one with fueling, so interchangeable between 3 and 4.
I get the F's confused. And then we didn't necessarily talk about, hey, we think we can do X time. But we did think, or at least what I told my wife when she asked, and what we had kind of talked about, we were like, depending how the day goes, I would say it's pretty safe 10 to 11 hours.
Right, same.
But obviously, it could It could be 12. Like, we don't know because we heard about the rocks and all this stuff, so we just don't know.
Yeah, and that
everything.
really, and I think you're totally right. Like, in terms of a time goal, we had some ideas of what we thought a good performance would be that would be commensurate with our training and all the effort we put in.
Yeah.
But we're also like, that wasn't what it was about. It was about, hey, this is the first time doing this thing. Let's
survive it.
Let's survive it.
And
let's do the best we can, and let's go on this experience together. And I think we ended up finishing in 10 hours and 20 minutes, which everyone tells us that's a good time for your first year. But for us, it was most like, it was more about like, we'll take anything.
Yeah. And so if you may remember, or you heard our Casco Bay race report, you got COVID 2 or 3 weeks before that race. Yeah. And that was a source of anxiety for you. Mm-hmm. I was not super worried about it personally. Now, unfortunately, literally 2 Mondays before ÖTILLÖ, I got it. Luckily, I had a good, I didn't have it very badly.
It was pretty mild.
But it knocked me off my feet for a couple days. And I know we were totally more in taper mode and stuff, but I also had more anxiety about that because I was thinking, I just don't know how I'm going to be able. I don't know what's going to happen.
I didn't know if you were going to race. Like, I was basically like, all right, he's a big boy. He'll tell me what's going on.
I mean, it was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was going to happen. But I was also, it was just a little bit of the hay was in the barn. Like, the hard work was already done. This was, okay, there's a couple, swims and a couple more runs. But at that time when those were happening, I was like, am I going to be able to run without my heart rate going to zone 4 immediately kind of thing?
That wasn't going to help anything for you to take those risks. So, I was pretty much like, shut it down, dude, shut it down.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, I mean, do you think there were any lingering effects?
I mean, I felt, it's hard to say. I mean, I was kind of had like a little sniffle and a little cough, just like the tail end of a cold.
Yeah, you were pretty phlegmy, but
that's basically what I've had for like 2 weeks. So, but at no point was I like, it didn't feel like that. But I don't know. I'll tell you, it couldn't have helped things. If I didn't have it, it probably would have been a better situation. But anyway, we made it there relatively healthy and ready to go.
Relatively healthy.
We had our nutrition and fuel plan.
I think in terms of, we mentioned it before. When we towed that line, we were as prepared for an event as we possibly could be. Yeah. A lot of former guests gave us amazing pro tips. People who we'd met who DM'd us and got to meet in person were giving us great pro tips. But it was interesting because this is more of like in hindsight, like all those pro tips were great, but you really had to do it. The only real way to get a sense of, okay, the first 2 islands are tough. The last 2 islands before Uta are tough.
I've done tough stuff,
but you really,
you got to do it.
And I think,
you gotta see
we'll talk about this at the end, but this course is no joke. Anybody who lines up to do this thing, mad respect.
Yeah.
People like Axelgaard and these guys that do it every year and are constantly on the podium, like these people are ninjas.
Yeah. So we're lined up in the corral. You can't be tethered. It's a martial start. So one of the original 4 Anders is on a quad with his couple dogs in the front, and he takes off down the road, and that kind of keeps
it's like a little flare that goes off.
And they shot it up.
And we looked at each other, we're like,
scared. It's like, it was like a little mini firework. And then, our goal was Rundmura is kind of the first island section. Like, that's what we kind of called, that's the first like quarter basically.
Yeah.
And for us, that was like survive until there. And then we can kind of start running because that's what people have been telling us. Yeah.
Take it easy. Keep it in our pants. So, don't fall. First islands are treacherous. And they were.
They were very treacherous. So we did the first run, and they kick you off with the 1600 swim, but it's everybody like charging in like an Ironman start almost, if you will.
And the sun was rising over your right shoulder. It was, and the conditions were awesome.
It was great.
That water,
the water was amazing.
It was basically balmy.
Yeah. And there's little jellyfish going all around and stuff. So I led that first swim out, and we were just going. we were just cruising.
Just cruising.
Just cruising. It's a long day. And then we're there, and it's like, okay, the rocks. Now.
Yeah, that first exit was like, okay.
Yeah, the slippery rocks. Here we go. But Coach Nico from Team Envol, and Marcus and the Adorkables were doing a practice swim run at Hella's Garden, like the OG swim run, one of the OG swim run spots. Erica Rosenbaum,
who coined the name
swim run. She trains near there. So we had actually gone out there and done a little hour swim run practice with him, which was like plus 10 intel points for us.
It turned out to be almost like, because
it was master intel.
So,
obviously, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that definitely helps sort of my anxiety about it. It's like, okay, we get to do some transitions coming in and out of rocks. And the way Nicholas set up, and I must say, like, super cool of him to invite us.
Yeah, that was great.
And this is the first time we've ever gone to like sort of like a coached. It was like a track session, but it was like a swim run coach session where he's basically moving the exit points from, we would do these loops, these transition loops where we would jump in on slippery rocks, swim, and he would tell us where to come out.
But you'd swim like 150.
Yeah.
It's just like a little circuit thing.
Exactly. And each time we would change sort of the exit points, you could try different, some were steeper, some were slicker. That was really interesting, and that's helped us a lot. And there's like, okay, we're going to do some runs through the forest. And Chipper and I were like, what is this guy doing? Because he's cutting in, he's going up, he's going down, he's doing
like
these really weird sections.
He's like a deer trying to flee a mountain lion or something.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't know where you're going with that. But yeah, we're at it with like, dude, why don't you just run straight? You know, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm like, there's a trail right here.
And he's like, oh,
jump over a log. I'm like, what?
It's like, this is how it's going to be. And honestly, I didn't appreciate that part of that training session until the race, where I was like, this is what because it just seems so foreign. I mean, what you have to understand about this race, that everything from the water is super brackish. So it's almost like, it's like lake water that's a little bit salty.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the ocean at all.
No.
You can drink it. I drank it because everyone says you can drink it just for the show, and it tasted fine. Also unintentionally drank it a couple times. Of course, yeah. But yeah, everything from the water to these islands, it's like you're on this other planet where this terrain is demanding every step of the way.
Yeah.
For the most part. 80% of the time, it's like you have to do heads up racing, but you also have to look down because there's roots and rocks and little turns everywhere. So you have to watch your feet so you don't fall.
Yeah.
Plus, you still have to look up to see the flags because it's zigzagging. I mean, the trail map is bullshit because the trail map shows it like as kind of a straight line you're going through.
It's impossible to show every zig and zag.
Yeah, I mean, because it's all zig and zag.
It's all zig and zag. So we did the first couple of islands, and you're literally leaping onto rocks, and I remember thinking a couple times, like, I hope I stick this, because it's just a faith leap. Yeah. And you're like, okay, I'm confident in my shoes that it'll stick, and you would stick and you would go. But I mean, people are slipping around you, falling over. Totally. You're doing these
I don't know how many
slips.
times I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, you're doing these little micro slips around where you kind of go to push off and your foot slips 2 inches. Yeah. You're like, oh my God. And then, and we actually stayed tethered on that. I think we did, again, could we have probably gone faster on that? Sure. But we weren't trying to save 2 minutes.
Yeah,
we were trying to be alive.
See goal number 2, which is stay upright, which is the one goal. I think if we crushed anything,
don't get fucked up.
Yeah, don't get fucked up goal, mission accomplished for sure. But yeah, I mean, these first couple islands, I mean, our plan was always to go in, just be conservative. You know, Jonas, all these folks.
There's no point in blowing it out.
Yeah.
It's a long day, 10 plus hours for us. So.
Totally. So just take it easy. The first part of the race is slow. This is also something that Pierre Julien told us, who was in our DMs. He wanted like one of our pink shirts, so we like hooked him up with it. He was like, the first 2 islands and the last 2 islands, advice. Like those are the ones that are just like, those are the weird ones. You'll never see that anywhere else. And I mean, these things were.
He wasn't lying.
He was not lying. So it's funny. Even that advice. Okay, you're telling us that these things are crazy. Not until you have boots on the ground that you're like, okay, now I have a context for what you're saying.
Yeah, totally. So we got to Run Murrah, and I mean, I felt like we were moving well. We weren't dogging on the swims. Our transitions were tidy. It was like, okay, let's just keep going. Let's keep the pace up.
Definitely having fun.
Fun was had. Fueling. I had 10 jumbo gels in my thing. I mean, I looked like I had 5 or 10 pounds extra of the pH jumbo gels on me, plus a flask, plus arm warmer. Like we were, we needed to survive.
You put it in kilos because,
Oh man, hold on. Carry the one. I don't know yet. There's no way I could do that. So yeah, it was good motivation for me to like get those first couple down the hatch and make sure we're doing that, which
makes some room.
I think we were doing good on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think Run Mara, we were moving really well, and we kept seeing Rasmus and Vila on the course at the main aid stations because they were shooting video for the live feed and their hype movies that they're going to do. And they were checking in on us, telling us we're doing okay.
You guys are doing great.
Like,
we're like,
really? Well, it was funny. It was funny because the first one, Vila was like, you guys are doing great. Like it was like a surprise.
We surprised him.
I'm like, hey man, that's cool. We'll take a surprise. But yeah, we kept seeing him. But yeah, that first we sort of cut the race up into a couple sections. Definitely getting to Run Mara, where that's the first place you can really kind of run on like normalish type trails. And we were moving really well, I think.
Yeah, I was happy with how we were going, everything. And then the only like snag we had was I was leading the long swims, and then Chris led the second or third swim, and then after that you communicated that your shoulder was feeling a little smoked.
So this was a moment of growth because I think if it was another race, I wouldn't have told you because I would have been like, I'm just going to deal with this and try to get it sorted. But for this race, it was like, dude, we still got like 50K to go.
Something. there's no time to like, be cute about anything. So that was probably somewhere on the second or third. Was that after Run Mara when you?
I think it was after Run Mara. It was the island, heading to the island after Run Mara, where I kind of started feeling, and I don't know what it was. It was kind of like pinched or something. But that would be the sort of first of many niggles. I mean, by the end of the race.
Oh yeah, I mean,
my right hamstring.
I just started the dominoes. Effect.
My neck.
But that was a time, and I was like, no problem, I got it. And I think that's where our training was so beastly. I was like, I can pull every swim, no problem.
And the thing was, like,
and it's not like you weren't just fucking coasting. Right.
I was on your feet. I think I just needed like that. I just needed someone else to do the sighting,
the 5%
kind of
off,
thing.
the 5 or 10% off the effort. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, I knew that you were pushing through. Whatever, you weren't 100%, so that's fine. And then we got to Namde.
Yeah, so the island's right after Run Mara. I mean, it's just like these terrains are so technical. You're going through these, basically climbing up and over the island, so tons of up and downs, lots of bounding. So it wasn't even like, you'd run 3 meters in one direction, turn left abruptly, go up, jump over a log, go out, go down.
These aren't like, I don't know, in the United States, when you go on a trail run, there's a very clearly defined area. This was the only reason that you can sort of tell where to go is the flags, mostly.
And the fact that like 100 teams have
and then the fact like a bunch of teams ran over it, and you could kind of see that. But I have deer tracks near my house that are more worn in than any of these trails that we've been on. And these aren't like, this isn't dirt. This is like a rock through moss, up over a log, step up, kind of do a little rock climbing thing, keep running, go up another thing, zigzag here, go there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, you were never...
It was demanding. It was demanding on multiple levels, right? As we mentioned before, because of the fact you had to be heads up racing, because you could be going left, right, up, down. Like you really have, nothing, can't take any for granted. And a couple times, I would miss it, miss it, be like, oops, sorry, because it was like a fork and I went to the right instead of the left.
But then if you would have kept, you could have gotten to where the other flag was, but it just wouldn't have been, you would have just went around the left side of the tree instead of the right or whatever.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, I think getting through those islands, that was still, to me, that was one of the funnest sections because we were still pretty fresh and moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
Spirits were definitely high. Because then we got to Namda, and that's sort of like the second longest run. And again, on that one, I thought we were moving really well to the aid station, super high energy.
We cabbed down on that one. The weather was nice, but a lot of this is also in the forest too. So yeah, it was sunny out, but you also were kind of a little bit cold. from the swim, and then you were running, and it wasn't. I feel like, at Casco Bay or Swimrun Lake James earlier this year, it was like, oh man, if you went an extra, quarter mile with your wetsuit cabbed up and it was too hot, you would spring a leak. Here it was, you could kind of push it a little bit farther without having it cab down.
Yeah, we initially thought we'd cap down on Run Mara, Nemda, and Orno, which are sort of the three big runs on the course. We ended up not doing it on Run Mara, just kind of like taking the swim caps off.
It was still early. It was still 50 degrees probably.
Yeah. I mean, and so we're on Nemda. We're moving really well. That aid station's super fun. They had hot dogs there. I didn't have one. They had mustard, and Chipper just tried the mustard because it was like, can I just try the mustard? They were looking at you like you were ridiculous.
Well, I walked up, and I'm vegetarian, and he pulls out this dirty water dog, but the European equivalent of a dirty water dog, and he's like, huh? And I'm like, no thanks. And I was like, oh, look at this mustard. I was like, can I have some of this? He's like, sure. Okay. Squirted on my finger, and off I went.
Yeah, so that's another place where we saw Villa and Rasmus, and they were, it was actually a lift to see them because it's like, hey, here's people we know, here's people that like want us to do well,
and we haven't even touched on either, like folks like Mr. and Mrs. B, John Littlewood, people were volunteering.
Yeah, Michael
along the course. So it was almost every island or two we were getting, at least for me, it felt like boosts, just like injections of energy because they're like, Löw Tide Böyz, or Shane shouting
from his
a
boat. Yeah.
And it's like, I mean,
love that.
Obviously, everyone took amazing care and treated us like so amazing. And not everybody has, tons of random strangers to shout and cheer them on during it, but it was an incredibly uplifting exposure every time we would.
And people on the course
somebody.
being like, seeing our pull buoys and shouting us out and stuff, which was great. So we get through Nemda. We're still feeling pretty well. I actually think that's probably the high point in terms of just like running pace and just overall.
Yeah.
Like we were pretty light in our feet. That would end pretty quickly later on. But we got through Nemda, no problem.
Then we knew the
pretty
pig
runnable.
swim was coming up.
Yeah, so we start going through these islands that lead to the pig swim. So we go to this island that essentially has like the aid station. Everybody wears funny hats.
Yeah.
Just
and we saw Helen and
Helen
Katie, who's actually from the United States. She's a Southern California endurance person.
Yes, she's an endurance person. She flew out to Sweden to volunteer, which is
that's
cool.
awesome.
And that I guess a funny story. So we cabbed down, and just like a couple of amateurs when we started cabbing up like way too late. So we're sort of at the shoreline, just like trying to get our shit sorted. A couple teams pass us and stuff.
Yeah.
We're like, look at
that was the only time I would say that we were really like, we probably could have cleaned it up a little bit.
Yeah,
but
we
hey,
definitely,
out of how many transitions? 72. We
48.
missed one. We're good. It's fine.
Yeah,
we scored high marks on that, but certainly
for sure. Yeah, and then the pig swim. I mean, I guess this is a good place to note that the conditions were pretty mild. Not a lot of wind, not a lot of chop. I mean, the pig swim, you led the whole thing, and
you weren't looking forward to it.
I mean, if I needed to do something, I would have done it, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was like, well, let's just see how it goes.
I mean, it was literally, and was that when we saw John Littlewood?
That was after.
Okay. So we went in, and actually Michael, I think, he had his Löw Tide Böyz hat on that we brought some hats over and gave them away to people at our meetup and stuff. He was wearing it.
Nice.
So awesome. And he's like, basically no current. And then I looked up and I saw the strobe. And I'm like, okay, straight 80, just bang it out. Well, 1400.
By the way, I found out the current came later. Because California Swimrun, Andy and Phil, they said they had some weird current.
Oh, interesting. So we went through it, and it's just a long fucking swim.
Yeah, I mean, it's super exposed, jellyfish, the whole thing. It wasn't very cold, which was one of the things they warned you about. But
I mean, I see if you weren't paying attention and there was some current, who knows where you would end up?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
You're out there.
You gotta really pay attention, and we jumped in with another team, and they were maybe like, I don't know, 30 meters or something like away from us real quick. Like it was like, where are they going?
Yeah, I was like, maybe they know something I don't, but I'm just going to keep going towards this light.
Right, as long as you keep going towards the light.
And I kept swimming, and I would poke my head up. I mean, I think one thing that I feel like I try to do a lot is sighting. I'm like, hey, we're not the
Please.
fastest swimmers
Yeah.
out there,
We
but
don't
if
need
we
to swim
can
any
make it from
extra.
A to B in the shortest distance possible without any bonus, that's going to be quick for us. So, yeah, I'd be swimming. I'd pop up. I'm like, man, I feel like we haven't gotten any closer. And then do another, couple minutes, pop my head up. Oh, man. And then finally it's like, oh, my, okay, we're getting there.
There it is.
We're getting there.
Oh, I should say, we haven't mentioned this yet, but we're looking at the course map, which is on these like giant wooden plates that ÖTILLÖ gave all the participants.
Swedish handcrafted in collaboration with Form.
This giant
Press.
plate. It's like what Serena Williams would get if she won like the U.S. Open or Wimbledon or something. But
Yes.
It's made out of wood.
And we would be remiss to mention that we're also very cozy. This whole week we were very cozy. We made some new friends at Dry Robe.
Yes.
They were kind enough to give us a few of the ÖTILLÖ branded dry robes. So
Yeah, it was cool. You can check out their
really
IG
awesome.
to see some of the content we did.
Yeah,
with
they
them.
had some post-race interviews with us.
Pre-race as well.
There's a couple of interviews with us, and then some I was more out of it than others.
Yeah.
But really, really awesome folks over there. So
it's funny too. I mean, this is totally looking to the finish. Like usually at the finish, I get like a huge endorphin rush and I'm super pumped up.
yeah,
And you're usually not. You're the opposite. We like yin and yang
I'm
that
guy
way.
Mr. Mr. Med 10.
Yeah.
Teetering.
But this one, like maybe because the race was longer, like my endorphins were higher, but you were also more like subdued afterwards. Like it like just like everything was magnified.
Yeah, it's like you went off on your way and I was sinking lower and lower. But yeah, so we did the pig swim. Then there was a couple more islands. And one thing we had been told, several people, but Oscar told us about this. But there's a couple swims, a 300 and a 500 in between the pig swim, and then the other swim over to the island, a few islands before Untitled, and that's the one that everyone gets really chilly on. So we were making sure to kind of be ready there. And that's about the time I feel like I had been doing pretty well in my fueling. I had mixed in some nutrition on course, like the boiled potatoes with salt, some oranges. And I've been smashing my gels down. And we had some salt tabs that I think we were being pretty diligent about it overall, staying on top. But I think kind of around that time was when I just was not feeling, I was kind of over the gels.
Yeah. So when we got to Orna, I was still feeling pretty good.
We got there at just under 7 hours.
Just under 7 hours. And I was like, damn, if we can run this thing in like an hour and a half, hour 45, like, I mean, that would be pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we got into that run and immediately you're going up and down, like death by 1,000 cuts. And then on this terrain that was really kind of tough on your feet, it was either like stone or just like uneven, so you really had to pay attention. And again, you couldn't just have like a normal stride. That would come later.
Yeah.
But that sapped you. And
I don't know if you heard, but like the second we got on out of that swim, I was like, I'm not sure what I got left, but I'm just gonna go for broke.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, and we when you talk about this race as a quest, there's these little tests, different tests that you have to deal with. The first swim, starting anything with like a mile swim is no joke. These couple islands where you're really trying to understand what you're dealing with, getting through some of these longer runs and jumping right back in the water. Then you get to this part this is like an 11-mile run that it's 2/3 of the way through the race. You've done most of the swimming already, but now it's time to do this long run. And it's just because you're a good runner doesn't mean you can do this 7 hours into a race, 5 hours into a race, depending where you are. Like you need to be. It's a challenge. It's its own challenge.
Yeah, and that's where the race sort of unfolds for a lot of the quicker teams up front. Yeah. To really step away. But
so you started kind of losing energy.
I was fading,
and we started doing. I kept asking
my
you,
legs
is
were
this
beat to shit. Like I was just pretty sore.
Yeah.
I also was I noticed as the swims went on, like my whole legs, my quads and my hammies would just get really tight feeling. And I'm like, oh man. And then you're swimming for 1,000 and kind of, it wasn't the coldest water we'd ever been in, but it kind of
accumulates.
It would lock them up a little bit, and then you go and you run it out on the next island. But we've been doing that for 7 hours. So
yeah, I mean it's a long time. I mean at that point, it's the longest we've ever been swim running because Catalina took us like 7 hours and 30 minutes or something crazy. But yeah, So you started fading a bit, and I kept asking you, like, hey, is this like a Orcas Island situation?
I mean, I wasn't hurt. Orcas Island was just like a mega bonk.
Yeah, I think this was like...
This was a combination
distance.
of...
And it was hard. That's the thing. It's like, it's not like when you get there, you've done very little running that would be what you consider traditional running. It was a lot of bounding. It was a lot of left to right,
micro,
up and down.
Zigging and zagging,
like
juking and jiving.
You know, basically a bunch of like, you know, what's the plyometrics, basically.
Oh, yeah, totally. And stepping up on like how many leg step ups did we do? 500 each leg? Like,
dude, at one point I was like, I
reps.
think I have like 3 more of these left in me. Like
jumping over logs, stepping over logs, climbing over logs, ducking under. I mean, like,
you got impaled on your
I got impaled. My swim cap
times.
got ripped twice. And then the next swim, like, it was all filled up. Like, you know, when people put a balloon on and breathe, you know, and I had to empty out tons of water. But so, yeah, Orna was
a thing.
Orna
was a thing. It was way more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And
I was expecting it to be that bad.
I mean, I just thought it's like, oh, here's where you can run. So as long as you keep clipping it away, but you really couldn't clip it away until you got close to the church.
Yeah,
which was a big...
It's still through forest and technical stuff, too.
Yeah. And then gravel road after that. Yeah, so then you get to the church and you're like, all right, cool. Now we just have to run down this road, get to the end, and you do these last couple islands. Well, that was a lie.
Yeah, that's true. We basically... I mean, in my head, I'm like, this is going to take us a while. It's going to take longer if I walk more. So run until I can't. And then I would be like, let me get a little break from here to that sign.
Sure, yeah. And we were like...
And we just kind of mix in those little hike.
Well, I remember asking you, there was an uphill coming. I was like, hey, do you want to walk the uphill? I was like, yep. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah. And we kind of got into that. And then
I started fading because I think it was like maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes after you, like I started going down too, being like, damn, like this is turning into like, this has just got super real.
It was pretty evident that it was going to be, we were going to be on there for a little bit of time.
It got real. And it's like.
And you're feeling, it's just like, I mean, we've been eating gels for 7, 8 hours, and
I'd had 14 gels at that point, and I was kind of just gelled out. I mean, and I try to just stick with the gels because I don't want to do anything to maybe upset my stomach. So I was like, hey, this is what's working. So I didn't. I mean, I know you were having like chocolate balls and stuff like that.
Those are tasty, dude.
But I was pretty much staying away from all that stuff. I did have that Capri Sun at that extra aid station.
So there was Andy Hewitt told us to stop it. There's going to be a hose.
Yeah.
He's like, it's the greatest thing ever on Orno. It's 2Ks from the church. And I mean, this whole time on Orno, you're like, wow, I wish there was an aid station here. Or at least that was what I was thinking. And the aid stations were really well stocked, but there was also, there wasn't like consistency. So not everyone had the oranges or the ball. So it was like, I would get to one and it didn't have what I was like wanting or craving actually. And it was like, instead of taking in, 200 calories here, I just kind of took in 50 or something.
Yeah, we definitely. I mean, that was the point where we hit the wall on a couple different levels. Definitely on the nutrition side, I think we're both like. I think I took from that point. I think I took maybe 2 more gels, and each one was like, I can't believe I'm putting this in my mouth.
Yeah.
So for like, I would say
I was going to boot
halfway through, maybe after that aid station was one of the last times that we took any sort of steady nutrition.
Yeah.
I got in 2 more gels after that, but I don't think you took anything else.
I had like a pretty good pull of the 90, so I would say maybe a quarter of it.
Okay.
So
maybe basically 30. Like 1 gel.
Yeah, maybe one gel.
But I mean, that run was interesting because it feels like it never ends, and then you get back into the woods and you're doing the same thing, like you see water on your left and you're like, sweet, the water's there, but you have to go for like another like 3K to get to actually.
And I mean, we had been out there for 8+ hours or whatever. The bottom of my feet were hurting. I mean, I was broken.
Yeah, we were.
And
definitely...
you get into the forest, and it's more of this log hopping shit. And I'm like, you know what? I'm fucking tired of this stuff. I'm tired of all this. I don't want to hop over logs. I don't want to jump down rocks to a slippery looking moss rock.
And I think so. That is like the final test, right? You get through Orna. You have to use. It turns into more of a mental thing. You got these essentially like 4 or 5 islands left to go. short swims, but the runs are almost like diabolical. There's one island which is like lava rock that's shaped like rollers. It was so strange.
But it's like, I mean, we literally were scrambling down and helping people down or pushing people up out of these. I mean, they would like send you down 10 meters.
Yeah, it could be flat and sunny
like volcanic
and chill on one side, but no, you got to go the other way.
And then luckily the swims, I mean, I had it on my paddles and I'm like, can you give me 370 meters of swimming? That's all that's left. That's all I need from you. And I'll just run until I can't no more. But yeah, in my head, I was like, okay, just get through Orna. And then, and I think when we got done with that, when we got to Orna, I knew, I was like, we could maybe go sub 10 if we are good.
I mean, everybody was, can't say everybody, but it was a fast day just because conditions were conducive for being able to swim quickly, not a lot of current messing with people, sunny, not raining, make it even extra ridiculous out there. I mean, we were getting to Orna in 7 hours. I was actually kind of surprised that we got there that early because, basically if you get there and you can get through Orna, like going in a good clip, like 9:30, not unrealistic or something like that. But again, because we didn't really have a time goal, we're like, okay, this is interesting, but there's so much more left, right? So when Orna
I tried not to think, I was like, cool, but sub 10 hours for our first one would have been so that was not even on my radar.
Yeah, I mean, it would, sure, of course, we have egos. It would have been awesome to go out there and crush it, but I think for any time, especially this race, and I guess this is more for like our final impressions, but it's like first time anybody does this race, whatever you think you know, and this is as, if I can speak for you, Chipper, as two people who studied the shit out of this, and our IQ is super high just from all the guests we've had, even with all that knowledge that we came into it with,
it doesn't beat
you have to experience it. The only way you can, anything we're telling you, just got to take it with a grain of salt, because unless your boots on the ground, it's hard to describe the sheer ridiculousness of it all.
Yeah, so after Orna, we made it across those islands. There was a couple little, like, it'd be a 150-meter island and then a 50 swim and then another.
Scale up freaking boulders.
It was just, I mean, I think at that time our bodies were.
We were moving
busted.
pretty slow.
We were
pretty slow. We're pretty gimpy.
One time I was like, I feel like I'm running like an old lady. And Chris goes,
You're
like running like an old lady. I'm like, okay.
Like you are.
Yeah, there we go.
It works out. But we got through those last ones. And then, once you get to Uta, I almost started crying because I was like, oh my God, like after all that time, like, it's like, shit, it's here. We did it. We're so close to finishing this thing.
And we got there, and I was like, "Is this Uta?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Fucking hell, it's finally Jesus Christ."
Yeah, like, So Uta's hard because,
dude, it's not as easy.
You got to go up this hill, you go down this gravel road, and then you essentially have to take this left that goes up the hill to the finish. And they call it Heartbreak Hill, which it isn't. We're from San Francisco. It's, as far as hills go, it's like whatever.
It's cute,
but
it's not what I wanted to finish. It's not what I wanted at the end.
Yeah, so we took a couple strategic walk breaks because I was like, hey, man, when we
charge
get this
your batteries
hill,
up.
Just stay on my feet. We got this. We're going to finish this fucking thing.
And they had, we were super stoked. We saw Team Batman's parents. Meta, super meta.
Yeah.
They were like, Löw Tide Böyz. They recognized us. And then we were kind of chugging along. And any little incline was just, we were... And at that point, it had ticked past 10 hours, or it was, unless we're going to drop some fucking heat down, it wasn't happening. So that was kind of relieving, if you will, to not have to stress. Because if it was like, hey, if we can jam these in, insert painful time here, we can get this. Because, we probably would have.
Yeah, tried. And I think at one point I was like, Chipper, by my calculations, we have 10 more minutes of activity. Can you give me 10 minutes?
Yeah, no problem.
And when we got up this thing, and again, I cried a little bit. I tried to hide it from you, but
nothing wrong with
as
crying.
We're going up the hill, I was crying a little bit, just being like, I can't believe that we did the quest. We did it. We crossed the finish line, and all these people cheering for us. people shouting out the Löw Tide Böyz.
Crazy.
Our families were watching live, which was super cool.
People from the States were watching, and they had the little timing chip. So they had it, maybe 200 or 100 meters from the finish. So they could, coming in now from whatever, they can announce it. I mean, we got some serious cheers.
It was great.
And it was
great.
awesome. And Marcus and Beek were there. I mean, at this point, I was on fumes.
You were classic.
You
were classic finish line chipper.
The tank was empty. Yeah. I had nothing left to give. And we finished, and, I don't even really know what we did. I went over to hug Marcus and Beek, and they're over there because he gave me the hug gesture. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I kind of leaned onto him, but I started falling over the fence. And I'm like, I'm going to knock this poor guy over. And then they took us for an interview almost right after.
My wife, she was like, I can't believe they made you do an interview right after. She's like, Chipper wasn't looking good. I'm like, no, man, Chipper doesn't look good at finish lines. It was funny, she said, she was like, it's like you're in Mario Brothers and you got the power up. As soon as you cross the finish line, I was like, do.
And I was like, wah, no more hearts left.
But yeah, I mean, and seeing Michael, and Michael Lamel was like, was it everything that you were hoping for? And I was like, I don't really know how to answer that, but it's everything that it was supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's a kick in the pants.
It was definitely everything it was supposed to be. And I mean, just again, like we mentioned at the beginning, this race puts in a lot of the stories that we've had on the show into context. Like someone like Jonas starting every single freaking race. You went out there how many? 16
and
times?
winning, starting from winning them, and then now
Hugo
finishing was starting with people new to swim run and stuff. Just the whole gamut. It's just so awesome.
Totally. So the men's winners, Hugo and Max, who we've been shouting out all year, just been crushing
Savages.
It. So they finished in 7 hours, which is 30 some odd minutes off of the course record from last year.
Oh my word.
I mean, again, it took us 10 hours and 20 minutes to do this thing. I don't even understand. It just seems
3
so
hours
ridiculous.
And 20 minutes? How's
so
that
ridiculous
possible?
How fast they were. And funny story. So 2 funny stories.
Okay.
At the award ceremony, Michael told everyone that they were going so fast that he almost missed him at the finish line because he was in the toilet.
Taking a piss.
He was in the toilet. He almost missed him coming in because we were going so fast. The other story was that someone told Max and Hugo when they got on Uta that if they run this pace, they could hit. They're close to getting 7 hours.
Breaking 7 hours.
So they were running the last island. They're running 5-minute miles. After all that, 5-minute miles.
I mean, that's just different level.
Unbelievable. I mean, just the level of athleticism and these people are ninjas.
Yeah.
Total ninjas.
I mean, and we talked about this out there when we were doing our thing.
Yeah, while we're doing it.
And we're like, if you finish this race,
Respect.
It doesn't matter if you're the first person or the slowest person ever.
Respect.
You are an animal. This is...
It's a huge achievement.
It's amazing.
I mean, another crazy story. So Adriel Young, 3-time world champion, also winner of the One Water race, which was a 250-kilometer race through the entire archipelago.
50 Ks of swimming.
50 Ks
just
of swimming.
Just finished a week or two ago.
That was 13 days ago or something. Yeah. He comes in second place, which is, again, it's knowing what this race demands after doing that to doing this. Yeah. It's just insane. On the women's side, Desiree was the first woman to break 8 hours. Which, I mean, and, no one needs to hear again how awesome I think she is as a swim runner. And then on the American side,
Team Spamfica went under sub-9.
First American team to go sub-9, and they crushed it. I mean, we heard stories from Beek saying how Marcus quads were cramping, and it was I mean, they dug super deep. Super proud of them. French women's team became the first women's team on the podium. It was awesome.
First French team on the podium.
Yeah, first women's French team on the podium.
There was a French national team, so a actual the congregation of French swim runners is impressive.
They basically sent their I think it just follows the ÖTILLÖ qualifying rules, but basically anyone who qualified for ÖTILLÖ automatically became part of the French Federation team. Oh. So they basically sent their delegation of athletes, and they're all wearing matching kits and stuff. It was cool.
They had a good look.
They look correct.
and Amy and Trista, the Adorkables.
This is my favorite story of the weekend.
Magical. So they made no secrets about they're not going to be blistering their way through this, right? They're out there to have fun and to do their thing about it.
Like
which
us,
is,
they trained their asses
They
off.
trained a ton. I mean, they did not try to coast. I mean, they were working with Anvil coaching. I mean, we were kind of comparing training notes, if you will, at one of our mini ficas. But the work was put in.
Yeah.
And they finished. They were the
second to last
team. 1330, 1320, somewhere between there. But the community that everyone pretty much came out and cheered them on and was screaming their heads off for them.
I lost my voice.
Yeah, you probably
crying.
were a little bit hoarse. It was just awesome. And the last team came in not too long after them, and that was a whole thing. I mean, literally everyone emptied out of everything to come out to cheer.
And all
these
the
last
winners,
people
all
on.
the winners were there. Max, Hugo, Desiree, they were all out there to bring them in, and you know, and mad respect for Amy and Trista. At one of the cutoffs, they'd beat it by 3 minutes, and they basically were you know, boogeymen on their shoulder with these cutoffs for like 6-7 hours.
Brutal.
I mean, just mentally. I mean, I think what can't be overstated is like the mental challenge that this race is. Like heads up racing takes a whole new meaning when you got to do it for 10 hours basically or more.
Yeah.
And you got to look down and up. You got to keep your wits about you. Like every step for, well, not every, but you know, like let's say 80% of the steps you take on this thing, you could fall. You could hurt yourself. You could like trip or something.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of focus, and that's exhausting.
Yeah. And so I was definitely out of it. So we talked with ÖTILLÖ after. I was probably out of it. We talked to dry rope after. I was Dennis, legend. Dennis is a legend. He's like, do you need anything? I'm like, I need a Coca-Cola. And he's like, okay, I'll go get you one.
I think he bought you one.
I think he might have bought it. Do I need to Venmo him like a couple euros?
I think you're good for it.
Okay.
But yeah,
well,
I think he bought you one because they weren't available. Yeah, he gave you one. You gave me some.
Yeah, and so we talked with the dry rope people. They wanted to get our first impressions, and I mean, they definitely got them.
They got them.
And we hit the showers, kind of got changed, freshened up, and just got to come back. And like the favorite part, and this is why we love doing the meetups or the post-race things with everyone, is like everyone was just sharing their stories, and we all did the same thing.
Yeah.
And talking about, oh, what a bitch it was. Remember the poop swim? Oh my God, the poop swim was horrible, blah, blah, blah. And it was that. We had an amazing dinner, hung out, talked to, all the people. So many people. We can't, it's people, literally, it's like 100 people.
And I just really appreciate people coming up to us. Like, it's too many to list, but people that we've had on the show that we got to meet in person, people that, we sort of idolized, Susie Moonin, tons of former guests, Per, who's been like basically a super fan from the beginning.
Yes.
Finally got to chat with him. And that was, it's like almost reconnecting with an old friend in many ways. And it was great to share these stories. We're talking with people who did their first race, and the way they were describing it, we're like, yeah. 100%, totally agree with you there. Oh yeah. The after race, again, mentioned at the beginning, it's almost like we all went to summer camp and just made the greatest memories. And then we just have those to take with us. Yeah.
Now, if you listen to Road to ÖTILLÖ 0 months out, which is our episode before this one, actually, you'll hear our friend...
Countdown to ÖTILLÖ.
Countdown. What did I say?
Road to ÖTILLÖ.
Whatever. Same thing. Our friend Thor of Rockman, the Rockman thing, he did a Rockman race report episode, just kind of a race director's recap, which we'd like to feature other races. He put a challenge out. He said he's going to stay in front of the Löw Tide Böyz the whole day.
And we were like, okay.
We're like, that's fine. I hope you do.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter to us, but it was it was a good little thing. Well, we do have to say,
sorry, Thor.
We beat Thor. And I will also say he did pay his bets. He bought us a beer.
He did.
And I'm pretty sure if we twist his arm, he would give us a Rockman entry. If we really wanted one.
Yeah, I mean, he hooked us up with hoodies and
we're excited
hats
to see
too,
him
which is awesome.
out. He'll be at Swimrun NC this year, which will be our next race. And then we sort of tried to go to bed. We woke up the next morning at you were up, who knows when. I woke up at 6, which is pretty good for me. And then we just walked up and got our breakfast on.
I mean, it was everyone would say, "Oh yeah, the breakfast after the race is just legendary." I mean, it was super good.
There was
so good.
The food here and just everything was just awesome.
Everything was classy. I mean, last night at the dinner after the race, there was these little jars of caviar, and I just thought it was an accident that they put them out there. But no, it was like you could just take a little jar of caviar and I was like, oh shit, okay.
The food was, Anyway,
it was awesome. I mean, I think we should probably try to land this plane a little bit.
Then we're back on the ferry.
Leaving on the ferry, we were sitting with a bunch of folks, but I was chatting with Phil from the Swimrun Monks, and he was saying, it's like,
California Swimrun now.
California, yeah. Make sure you have your camera ready because this is a thing. This is like the sort of the final piece of this experience. And as the ferry pulls out, there's Michael and Mats and everybody from ÖTILLÖ
waving by to us.
Just waving by, and you just wave at them. And
and everyone's like, oh, it's just like a perfect cap for the weekend.
It's like, thanks.
More war stories on the ferry. And you kind of get on these buses and you head back to the Stockholm Central Station, where we were at, just 4 hours ago.
Jesus.
And, here we are.
Yeah. So I think in terms of sort of final thoughts, I mean, I'm super proud of us for showing up and doing it. I think that, we took the race really seriously. We put it, I mean, we learned about ourselves for sure.
Yeah.
Doing something like this. And it was just like start to finish, just an amazingly epic experience that, I don't know if I'd recommend for everyone because you need to have you have to be ready for this particular challenge, probably more ready than even we were, which is the best piece of advice that we got from Jonas was do this race before you think you're ready for it.
Well, because you never will be ready.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
Exactly. So just doing it was amazing. And I mean, I in terms of sort of feats of endurance, this is what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to, it was many hours. We've done longer things, but in terms of just
level of difficulty,
pure badassery, you can't, it's unbeatable.
Yeah.
It's unbeatable. I mean, I'm sure there's hard things. Of course there's hard things, multi-day things and stuff. But if you're looking for, 8 to 12 hours of 8 to 14 hours, 13, 14 hours of a
physical,
you just want to be a freaking beast.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, again, we're still processing, I think, a lot of the emotions of it. And even I'm getting sort of emotional. Just so many parts of it were just this thing, I guess I'll put it this way. It's people who've done it 7 times, like Lars Ekman, who,
on the podium.
Who chipper,
mixed podium, right?
He was on the podium, 3rd place. Who chipper, in his honor, had a sweet mustache. Sweet mustache. I mean, this guy even does the race without goggles because one less thing to worry about. I mean,
what a Swede.
These guys are ninjas where, I mean, they prepare for this race and they know this course and this is their annual test.
Yeah.
And to do it repeatedly on such a high level, I mean, these are athletically gifted individuals.
And the question that we've been getting a lot as well, which we don't have to answer. We could just say the question, and we could just turn the mics off.
Okay.
Will the Löw Tide Böyz be back to ÖTILLÖ?
I've already answered that question to anyone who would ask, and the answer is
give Chipper a couple more.
I was like, don't worry about me. I'll convince Chipper, but yes. And here's why. So maybe I'll just ask you right now, since it's already out there.
I think it'd be pretty foolish of me to go, oh, I never am doing this again.
So here's the thing.
I don't think that's
I think
my
this
mindset.
This is the race. And this is kind of Herbert. Shout out to Herbert Crable. This is kind of how he does it. He does a race twice. Got it once to just survive it, understand it, experience it, and then the second time to go in there fully open-eyed as to what it is and train and then see what you can do.
Yeah.
Then take that test.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so yes, you'll do it again if we qualify and get it.
Yeah, I mean, did you think I was going to say no?
I thought if I asked you yesterday, the answer would have been no.
Well, if you made me pay for the race and register, I probably would have held off. Yeah, I need some cooling down period. But also, too, I mean, hey, we have young families. It's kind of a bitch to get over to Europe. It's like 14, 15 hours. We want to do every single race there is.
Yeah.
And so we can't be going to Europe 4 times a year,
right,
4 times a year. So we got to be kind of selective about what we're doing. So
and here's the thing.
But yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to do it again.
It hasn't fallen off the bucket list.
Do I want to do it every year and get some streak going? No. I mean, I kind of see it the way Villa does, which is like, hey, there's a lot of people who should do this race, and it's hard to qualify. So if your heart isn't into it to really give it your all, I'd rather just give it a year.
I mean, it was
let someone else get their shot at it.
It was a lot of training. I mean, it was that on top of doing the show, doing work. You know, we have regular jobs and regular lives too. Like, we definitely ramped everything up, and there was other sacrifices around our lives.
Yeah, a lot of people made sacrifices. I mean, a lot of we get so much support from so many people that not just from our wives and kids, but the community at large, our training buddies, our friends. There's a lot of people that are rooting for us. My wife said that she was watching the live broadcast, and on Facebook Live it says who else is watching, and she was like just surprised, like how many people that were mutual friends of hers and mine were like totally watching the thing.
I know, it was. I mean, we so much love on Instagram. Chris ran out of his data plan.
Yeah, my travel data plan.
Yeah, now he's being throttled, so it's me on the IG this week. So, but yeah,
it was amazing.
The Löw Tide Böyz will be back. We'll be back to ÖTILLÖ. Just maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think and to the ÖTILLÖ organization, Michael, Motz, everybody, Hannah,
bravo.
Yeah, I mean, this was everything. As I told Michael, it was everything I was hoping it was going to be and more. It was everything it was supposed to be. It was just an amazing experience. If I wasn't already super stoked on Swimrun, like I would have been super stoked after this weekend.
Yeah, I think if you got to be super stoked to do it this.
I think so. That's a good point. I think if you're not super stoked, it's going to be a long day.
For sure. Well,
that's it.
The landing gear's down. Are we touching down
so.
on this thing?
It was
Please
kind
make
of
sure you're all buckled up.
If anyone has any specific questions about the course or wants to share any crazy stories that they had if you raced it for the first time or the 10th time or whatever, send us a message. I mean, we'd love to hear how your experience went. Because that was also a really fun part. Like breaking bread with everyone after and hearing their war stories was super fun. And I mean, I think we felt super welcomed and felt totally part of the community, did everyone else.
Spoiled.
It was great. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. And like I said, on every scale, this was just an amazing experience.
Quite the amazing
and
several days.
I will never forget it.
Yeah, how can you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you out there.
Yes.
Boom.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Löw Tide Böyz on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swimrun activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff. Way to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Go for a run.
Then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then another run.
And then just keep going. So you're done.
Or maybe can't stop.